Hello, today we're going to show you how to make a casket spray arrangement. For this you're going to need a plastic base, as you see right here. This is a very specific base that you can find in a floral supply store. It is intended to be non-slip, so there's little paddings on the corners of this base, and it's very sturdy, and it's essentially very important if you're going to build off of it. So you can find this at a floral supply store. The idea is to fill this base with some floral sponge. As you see here, I have pre-moistened some floral sponge, and I like to put my floral sponge into a plastic bag like this. And this is intended to keep all of the water inside of the floral sponge instead of having it drip or leak, and this will preserve the water inside it for much longer. So as you see here, the plastic is very thin, so you will be able to pierce it with the stems of your flowers. The next step is to secure this floral sponge to the base, and I'm going to take some floral tape. And it's quite important to ensure that it is secured firmly so that the flowers in the arrangement doesn't move or fall apart. So as you see here, I'm going to secure it in a cross formation here. And this is just to be extra certain that it's secured on there very tightly. So as you see here, I'm making sure that I put the floral tape in a cross formation and then I secure it underneath the base. The next step is to make a ribbon. Ideally, you want to start with this if a ribbon is necessary at the very beginning so that you can build around the ribbon. Here I'm using some wire ribbon, which is really great if you would like to keep the form of the ribbon and the shape of the ribbon. But you can, of course, use some satin ribbon or plastic ribbon as well, especially if you're looking to write a message on the ribbon. Some people would like to write their condolences or just names of the family members. It just depends on your client. So as you see here, I'm using a wire ribbon today. And this wire ribbon is great because it will maintain its shape if, for example, the ceremony is outside and it's raining and the ribbon becomes wet. That's not very much of a concern because it will hold its shape. So that's one of the benefits. So as you see here, I'm making a ribbon very quickly, and if you would like to watch a video, we have videos on our channel showing how to make this ribbon, but it's just practice makes perfect. So as you see here, I'm preparing the ribbon and I will be securing it onto this base. You can make the ribbon as big or as small, as full or as compact as you like. This is entirely up to you and up to the size and the dimensions of the arrangement you are trying to create here. The ribbon I'm chosen today is this red ribbon. As you see, the flowers we're going to be assorting are in a red and white color scheme, and that's just simply the preference of the client that we're working with. So we will be using some roses, some mums, some lilies, some orchids, and an assortment of greens, and I'll show you how to arrange that into a design. So the key thing to remember about casket spray arrangements is that they come in symmetrical and asymmetrical designs. A symmetrical design is where both the front and the back is long, and this is for a close casket ceremony. Alternatively, if you're having an open casket ceremony, you will have an asymmetrical arrangement where the back will be shorter with the longer portion extending itself outward. So today we're going to be making one for a closed casket. As you see, you can start, ideally, you will always have to start with the flowers and not the greenery because you want to ensure that the flowers are deeply embedded in the sponge and that they have access to water. If you start with greenery, you run the risk of having the flowers not be reaching the water or not be firmly planted. So as you see here, I am forming my shape. And I like to start with very firm stemmed flowers such as roses because it permits me to form the shape, which is, as you see, is in a bit of a cross shape with one rose because it is an open casket arrangement. It's asymmetrical with one rose being longer at the front and one at the top and one at the side. So you're essentially just creating the frame of your arrangement here. And because this arrangement is going to be white and red, you are interchanging the colors so that you are maintaining some color balance, but you're also incorporating all of the colors that you're looking to use. So the roses will permit you to create the frame of your arrangement. So the volume, the length, the structure is what will be essentially made here in this initial step. So as you see here, I am putting roses towards the bottom of the arrangement, fanning out. I'm also putting roses towards the top in different angles and in different directions just so you can create that fullness. And after you've built this base and this skeleton, you're going to fill it up with fuller flowers, and we're going to get to that in the next step. So this is just the initial step, and as you see, I'm mixing the colors so that they are evenly mixed. Everything is proportionate and everything is visually coming together based on that scheme. As you see here, you are creating what looks to be a cross. It's a T shape, and you have a fanning out effect. So you're going to put in the initial flowers and then you're going to work around it to fan the flowers out. As you see, they're all facing around this shape, and some will be at an angle, peering more outward, and others will be towards facing a little bit lower, but of course at eye level. The next step is to take very full flowers. Here we're using some mums, and mums are incredibly long lasting and they're also very full. Because this arrangement is typically very big, you're going to need to fill a lot of space to ensure that none of the sponge is peering through. Mums are excellent flowers for this because they allow you to fill space and dimension without having to use too many flowers, and this allows you to be both efficient and to incorporate flowers that are going to be longer lasting. So if you have a ceremony that spans a couple of days, you do not have to be concerned about them not lasting or being able to carry through. I'm also going to be incorporating some lilies. Once again, the idea behind this is that because they are very full flowers, they cover a lot of space, a lot of dimension, and you're going to need fewer of them to fill up a lot of space. And of course, they are long lasting. So as you see here, I am filling the spaces between the skeleton that we created in the initial step. And this is, you start to see the fullness begin to form and the shape begin to take place. So if there are any gaps peering through, go ahead and use your flowers to fill those gaps in. You will be using greenery in the final step to really ensure that there are no gaps, no areas peering through, no visible sponge peering through. But try to fill up as much space as possible with the fullest and longest lasting flowers that you can, because oftentimes these ceremonies will take place over the span of a couple of days, and you do want to ensure that the flowers are fresh and beautiful. So as you see here, you can fill in any spaces visually as you carry on. I am adding more longer stems of roses to create that spray and cascading effect, as you see here. When you are creating that visual spraying out effect, you may wish to use longer stemmed flowers. Here I'm using orchids, but you might also choose to use some snapdragons as well. And the concept behind this is just to simply create that cascading, descending effect. So as you see here, I'm using some orchids, and you'll be putting them in between the roses to create that cascading effect. This may look like a very intimidating arrangement at first, but actually it's quite simple and it's quite methodical when you get down to it. It's really not that difficult to create if you take your time and carefully follow these steps. So as you see here, the last and final step is putting in the greenery. And I do save this for last, as I mentioned previously, because you want to ensure that your main focal flowers are taken care of, that they are in the water, that they're deeply embedded before you start to fuss with the greenery. I'm going to be using some baby's breath because it's full, it's very delicate, it's quite beautiful, and it will allow you to fill in those gaps between the flowers and cover up the oasis so that it's not peering through. We will be using a variety of greenery here today, but just for the essential portions of the design, we're going to be using the baby's breath just to fill in those spaces. But then we're going to move on to the greenery that's going to fill in spaces, but also add to the cascading and voluminous effect of the design, as you see here. As you see here up close, there is very little that is peering through. If anything, the flowers are very well packed in, and there's nothing that visually stands out and, I guess, demonstrates that there is anything underneath there, that there's any sort of base, and the flowers just look very well pieced together and arranged. So continue putting in your baby's breath until the gaps have been filled, until there are no visible bare spots peering through. And then once you have completed this step, you can move on to adding some more greenery as you carry on with the arrangement. Usually I use a mix of palm leaves as well as evergreens to create this final portion of the arrangement. Cut your baby's breath into smaller pieces, as you see I'm doing here. Baby's breath usually comes on one long stem, but you can always cut into smaller pieces to suit your needs and to suit the space that you're aiming to fill. As you see here, just carry on until you are satisfied that all the spaces are filled. And then once this step is completed, you can move on to using palm leaves to fill and create more of a cascading voluminous effect. Since palm leaves tend to be very voluminous, you can trim the palm leaves to fit the shape that you're looking to achieve. You can trim if there are any damaged edges, as sometimes does happen with palm leaves. You can trim them down and continue assembling them throughout your arrangement. And this will allow you to create volume, this will allow you to create visual dimension, and it also makes it look very classy, very beautiful, and quite appealing visually. So as you see here, I'm taking some palm leaves, and because they are long and because they do lend to the cascading effect, I can put them towards the bottom of this arrangement. If you are working with a symmetrical arrangement where you have cascading at the top and at the bottom, you can put them in that direction as well. You can take smaller palm leaves and put it around the sides of the arrangement. You can cut the palm leaves and trim them and put them towards the sides, any shorter pieces. It all depends on the look that you're trying to achieve. But see, I'm taking the shorter pieces and putting them towards the front of the arrangement because that portion will be shorter because we are focusing on shorter stems there, with the longer stems cascading down the bottom. And once again, as I mentioned, this is due to the fact that this is going to be for a closed casket arrangement. After you've completed this step and you have placed your palm leaves where you wish for them to be, the final step is to take some evergreens. As you see here, I'm using some evergreens. And once again, these are very, very long-lasting greenery flowers, or leaves rather, because they permit you to fill in the spaces and to create this very beautiful, elegant look without having to use incredibly expensive greenery, and it's also incredibly long lasting. It's not going to fall apart on you, it's not going to shed, it's going to last throughout the ceremony and then some. So it's actually a very, very efficient and beautiful way to fill in any spaces. And of course, do not hesitate to fill in the spaces between the flowers with this evergreen as well. And this is the final arrangement, as you can see here. Thank you so much for watching. This arrangement is going to be very easy to place on top of the casket. It's not going to go anywhere because of the base. It is quite, it looks like it's quite a bit to transport, but it's actually not that difficult to transport. So thank you so much for watching once again. Good luck with your creations, and leave any questions in the comments below.